Good morning. A brief about me. I didn't go to hotel school. I wish I did. Somehow I discovered this path along the people like Ted and yourself. You gave me this awakening about the thing we actually do. I started my career actually as an architect. I started as an urban planner. I went to public school. I thought I want to be a mayor of New York, right? So you can't be a mayor if you didn't know how to build a city. So all started quite simple, a small little idea, be a mayor of New York. But it didn't turn out that way. It turned out something completely different. It's called scaling, from something that I work with for a great many years to something I'm working with the individual. And I discovered life, the way of life. That's your slogan. The way of life is a passage of time. And I discovered through my learning in urban planning, it's about how do we connect the dots, right? This is always about the debate whether I make the city very efficient or I make the city very romantic. There is no right and there's no wrong to it. And why is that Paris has much higher tourism than another city that goes straight forward point A to point B? There's absolutely nothing in between. So which is right and which is wrong? Now, this debate, of course, affecting the thing you do, equally affecting the thing I do. So I take on design, and I take on design integrating the thing I didn't know, which is the thing that you do. Now, you are the mighty voice of humanity. And that's what I discover. And I ever evolve into a space that I set up a platform for your voice. And the voice, I call it the voice of hospitality. And that voice, subconsciously, is all in each one of us. I mean, Ted mentioned that we're in the neighborhood. I lived on the second floor in the neighborhood. Summertime, we didn't have air conditioning. The window's always open. And I hear my neighbor shouting, "Hey, Giovanni, get home to eat." Another one say, "Get your ass here." So I hear all these wonderful hospitality slogans. And that somehow affecting all of us in one way or another. Sometimes you learn to block them, and sometimes you learn to embrace them. But somehow along the way, at this day in our life, we take it and make the best out of it. So I look at space the way I design them, is creating a platform. And a platform for the unknown. If it is known, the life would be so boring. I mean, why would I want to wake up every day knowing exactly what I'm going to do and knowing exactly what the weather is going to be? I think the most beautiful thing in life is being unpredictable, but fundamentally having something in common and something that can bring it all together. So I speak of the voice of hospitality. And the voice of hospitality, I didn't create this. This is just something that I subconsciously embraced over the years, taking on the tradition. And the tradition, each one of us inherited, but some of us take it for granted. Now, from urban planning side of it, what connects people the best? It's not necessarily tangible things, but rather than the voices. I was so connected with my neighborhood through that open window. I heard something, I learned something. You are in the hotel environment, or we are all in the public environment. Forget hotel environment. What do we hear, right? So the voice, the tradition, it is an experience. You take all the words, all the things you can comprehend, and you create an experience, perhaps a memorable one, okay? And of course, you practice them. And the life, as I said, is a passage. Then it becomes art form. We had a wonderful meal last night, the Japanese meal. You can see that this culture about taking a simple task, express them artistically to its perfection. If that is so wrong to do. If you practice your laugh, maybe that laugh becomes the Almighty God, right? So these are the things that we speak of every day. Now, what do we all have left? And the day comes to the end. That is the memory. And where are these memories made? Today, I hear, welcome home. And you have had 30 years of memories here. You look out that window. What do you remember? Now, you're remembering and he's remembering maybe even a little different, but there's something that binds you all. And that is the voice of hospitality. So I use this as a base to platform my doing for the last 34 years. I'm 3 years behind Ted, just FYI. And Ted was an idol for our neighborhood because the neighborhood we grew up, we didn't have many Asians in those days. So of course you always look up somebody and say, this is where I want to go. Ted went to Cornell and I went to a public school. I went way out on West Coast in Berkeley. And that's basically where I want to be a hippie, right, actually. I thought marijuana was free in those days. But it turns out I followed the voice. I find my way home. Now, speaking of hospitality, there was a man running a company, hotel company, says, you do what you do best. Don't worry about hotel design. Don't worry about operation. Don't worry any of that. You'll find you will learn that along the way of your doing. And that's exactly how I learned hotel design, or perhaps learn the hotel business. Now, I have a different opinion, so each one of us all should have a different opinion what hotel should be. But what exactly is hotel? If you label the hotel as a hotel, then this place would be nothing more than a hotel. But what if the hotel, it is a place that brings people together, public place that brings people together, make things happen, making memories. Memory through events, whether it's a business event or leisure event. But let's put all that aside, right? And I don't want to be too philosophical, forget the numbers, right? But think about how do we add value to our life every day through this process. So I create space and based on nature, right? Which we all take it for granted. This is not a very, very difficult thing to understand. Tree can practice incredible hospitality. Why can we not? The tree, using a very silent voice, only when wind blows, it making a little bit of a whispering. But to some people, it may be a mighty shout that you're under it, and you're making that beautiful memory. We create space for that possibilities. My job is not to tell you what to do. My job is to create that platform for all kinds of possibility. That's totally up to you. You have your own voice. Your voice will lead you to where you want to go. In this case, I say we should treat the back of the house a little more seriously. Why do we call it the BOH on the drawing, back of the house? What the hell does that mean? Right? This entire culture in the hospitality shouldn't be divided. A public environment is our home. We're part of it. People oftentimes, or perhaps I express my voice to say, your home is not private. And you say, well, it's my home. I say, well, your home, if I can see your home, therefore that makes it public. Right? The same thing with a hotel. So hotel is not private. Hotel is public. So in the old days, hotel put up a wall, say, don't come in. He put up a 5-star rating to say, I'm 5-star and you are 2, so don't come in. Those things that really is what propel my doing, and I really believe that hotel can take on another approach, which hotel can be, hotel industry, which you are, can be the backbone of humanity. So I create spaces for that. I create spaces to awaken your subconsciousness. I create spaces for you to think about it. I create spaces for you artistically practice your everyday life. So the staircase of such, this is in London, right? People will say, Tony, we have no budget to fix this staircase. I say, well, we must fix the staircase because this opportunity we cannot pass. It is a 7-story building. The guests may not want to take the elevator. They may want to walk down. But you have no idea who you're going to bump into when you're walking down that staircase. You can see the room service. You can see people taking selfie. You can see people doing conversation. And all those things does inspire each one of us every day. And that is not something that you predict the last night before you went to bed. Right? So I constantly doing things like such. Now, of course, there's a front of the house. Right? And that, as we call it, the encounters. So you then say, here is what you're supposed to say. And you write it down, tell every staff, right? That's what you're supposed to say. Do we really want to do that? Don't you think it should come from within? And I heard this thing yesterday from each one of you. Really, it's about coming from inside of you. Hospitality is natural. It all should be within you. So you take that and you practice in the art form. Right? Now, when I say art, in the school, including this, there's always two parts to every institution. And there's one part called the scientific part. And there's another part, it's called artistic part. Maybe the Latin call it art and science. Then people often get confused. They say, oh, I study science, I don't study art. But the reality of it is when we are all in school, we only study science. Science is the foundation, is the platform that gives us the fundamental, as you are here, as this great institution provided you 30 years ago. It gives you some basic know-how. Then once you step out, then you begin to practice the art department. You take what you know, you put them in the art form, and you do them artistically. You can operate the front desk artistically. I don't mean to be a comedian, but you can practice that artfully, and that really makes a huge difference to yourself. Now, if you're happy about doing that, what do you think the guests will feel? I think this is something you don't really have to worry about it. But unfortunately, oftentimes we worry too much about somebody else, not enough about ourselves. So I design hotel with all these sort of abstract form to work with our colleagues, and some of you here I've worked with. Some of you may not want to work with me. I consider myself the most difficult person to work with. But the space itself, I'm not here to show you design, but the space itself has a purpose. And that purpose, it is for you to discover. It is not for me to tell. If it doesn't rub off on you, I didn't fail, but you did. So very often, I hear in our industry, oh, the business didn't do well because it's bad design. I hear that constantly. Right? Every 5 years, like this morning, I woke up on the wrong side because people say, the room didn't work anymore, so now we need to redesign them. I said, the room didn't work anymore because you didn't maintain them. You did not evolve them. When someone came to me and said, Tony, when's the artwork coming in this room? I say, well, it'll come, you'll know. They said, well, when? I said, well, you haven't earned it. They said, what exactly do I need to earn? I said, imagine this room. I got enough graduate, enough recognition, enough write-up. Maybe I'll take all of that and I'll frame them and I'll create collage on the wall. And the wall can be beautifully, right, carved in as a memory for life. Maybe that should be the art program. Right? It could be. So these are the things that I oftentimes develop design for. So I believe everything I do is through this evolution process. But same thing with the hospitality, which is the voice. The voice comes from each one of us. We all have it. To some people, it may just be a little whisper. But to our guests, they have a voice too. And their voice of the hospitality being practiced collectively with yours. So together, in whatever the hotel brand may be, that could be a symphony by itself. So that, we call it the voice of hospitality. Right? People say that looks like me. All three. So I didn't put that up in my hotel, or not my hotel, the hotel I designed in Shanghai. They put it up because they always say, Tony, we just want that as a reminder. Now, the voice of an institution and what defines as an institution. Okay, it is a privileged thing, I mean, you are so privileged that you have had the opportunity to spend 3 to 5 years of your life in an institution, and I did too. And I think TED is one of the greatest institutions in America. And that is a privileged thing. And that institution has a voice. That voice you embrace. That voice you debated. Or that voice you resented. However, that voice surrounded you for a very good part of your life. My family is an institution. The voice I heard from my grandfather passed down for a great many years. The school I went to had a very powerful voice. And I remember, even when I go to sleep, it echoing in my ears. Right? So these are the things that we need to somehow pay attention to with the education that you got. It is the roots. So you are the trees of the forest. You're certainly not the grass of the hills. So that's what institutions provide each one of us, that we don't wish to take it for granted. Institutions teach us how to sustain through time. Institutions allow us to evolve through time. Institutions give us the opportunity and the knowledge, and that becomes the wisdom years to come. Institutions also give us the mountain that we can be proud of it and call it the forest years to come. That's what institution voice does. And now we take that voice, combine into the fundamental, the humanity, the voice that is the hospitality. I spoke of nature, give you hospitality. I spoke of people. Even the smallest people in the least desired demographic environment have their own hospitality. Ted, I don't know if you remember those summer night. You hear the what do you call those things that people play, the drums on the street. Yeah, you hear it in the summer night. It's not. And that's this very powerful voice. That's a summer voice of the neighborhood. That brought people together. They celebrated. They celebrated the night. The Irish people celebrated in the pub. So there's a different way to celebrate hospitality. So in this particular way, and I said, and I'm proud to be here, and I want to thank you for this kind invitation to bring me here to be part of this institution voice. Now, of course, it is not just a school. It is a way of life. The way of life. The way of life is not a job. Life is not a job. So I guess, I didn't come to the school, but I fully can understand this and can comprehend all this. If you choose a way of life, you're not separating a personal life with a professional life. You're not separating your vocal cord to say the left side is to the customer, the right side is to me. You take two sides of the vocal cord, you combine them together, you make a beautiful voice and beautiful message processed through your head, through the knowledge that you gain. So that you do it from this institution to that institution. And what is that institution? That institution is every neighborhood around us. Well, I always believe fundamentally, education comes from three places. Foremost, come from your home. The home education. We have many people do homeschool in our office, and we promote that. But of course, we also know there are institutional education where you send your kid to school. But for most important school and education is society education, which is public places. So this is an institution from this institution to that, and that is the public. That is the society education, and that's an ongoing thing. So education does not stop from the day you graduated. It's just the beginning. As I said earlier, you've learned all the scientific know-how. Once you go out there, you practice them artistically. Can you imagine for a hotel school guy to flip the burger? There's nothing wrong flipping burger, but if you flip them artistically, how good would that burger be? Right? And you take that beautifully to do it with your loved one. How lovely would that be? I met this person in Tibet. I say, the Shangri-La is really nice. And they say, you know what it means? I said, well, what does it mean, the Tibetan language? They said, well, Shangri-La means it's from your eyes to my eyes. Shangri-La is everywhere. He said, look up to the moon. I see you looking at the moon, then I look at you in the eyes. I can see the moon in your eyes, and that is Shangri-La. And that is hospitality. By looking. So, impression from one institution to the next, public space. And our world cannot be a better place if you don't practice your hospitality there. We practice here. Here is a project I took about 7 years of doing it. And it was a pleasurable job. Fabulous owner, great city, London. This is not a terrible good location, London. I would say probably a B- location. It's not a great location, but that's okay. We always talk about location, right? You guys remember the old days, the Grand Hotel used to have this waterfront, a lakefront. Those days are gone. Today the hotel get pushed up. Tomorrow the hotel get pushed down. Right? So location is important, but it is depends on what we made out of it. So in this case, we turn this location becomes the center voice of a neighborhood. So I am basically promoting the idea with what I've learned in my past in city building. Hotel is a content. What's more relevant is the context. Hotel has a magnetic force to bring people together. What is a hotel lobby? What is a lobby lounge? What is a dark bar? What's a signature restaurant? What's all-day dining? You guys hear all these things, but you are not processing the meaning of it. If that word does not exist, then how do you describe where you eat breakfast every morning? So the words is just not so relevant. But what is relevant is how does it feel when you check in to this hotel, when you arrive into this courtyard. This was I want to say it was a Marriott. Was it a Marriott or Ramada Inn? One of those, or Renaissance. Was one of those hotels. When I took over this, I looked at it, I said, how can anybody have done such a bad thing to this building? Because they want to symbolically define the building is theirs, so they painted the building, I think it was a green color. I think they painted green. I think it was Marriott. They painted the building green and gold. And this was all limestone building. So I fundamentally tell people, I say, sometimes it's not about what we do, it's about what we don't do. So I spend tremendous amount of money, owner's money, which they totally disagree about spending that kind of money to put everything back. They had a glass canopy. I don't know if you guys remember this hotel back when. They had a really ugly glass canopy. I don't know who designed it. But I won't even call that a design, but it worked. For the purpose, only one thing, when somebody get out of the car, they shelter from the rain. That's all they did. But they didn't do it artistically. So it didn't look very good. So instead of building a new one that I cannot afford, I take the money I had to remove the old one. So I take the ugliness away. Okay? What do you think plastic surgeons do? So, but in this case, I basically let this place to be its own place without any voice. Only your voice and this silence coexist together. And we think this arrival experience creates and can create a very different culture. Okay? And the same with this particular arrival. So I take the arrival experience and let it add value, right? It's value creation, as Ted mentioned earlier, but it adds value not to the hotel itself, but to the neighborhood. So if this elevates the neighborhood, collectively elevate everyone else. What good for you to be the best building on the worst block? Right? So how do you add value to the neighborhood? Right? This is oftentimes we in the hospitality field should know how to do. But perhaps the world becomes too noisy, so we no longer hear our own. So if we take our voice, the voice of hospitality, and the voice from this institution, you combine them, you can make this incredible noise or the voice in public environment. Now, I believe if that happens, everything else could follow, the economic side of it. We all talk about upsells, aggressive sales, and whatnot, but perhaps just let it be. Passage of life, it gives you fundamental essential of life. Hotel is essential part of a neighborhood. Hotel is essential part of the city. You play a very important role to the city in the making. So you don't really have to upsell that, but you just have to do the fundamental part. Okay? So that takes you to the voice of the people. The voice of the people comes from many, many different forms. Sometimes we don't hear it. So maybe we need to do more listening than talking. We have too many seminars. We have too many conferences. We got too many meetings. What do we actually talk about? So the voice of the people is about together you make symphony. Each one of us plays certain part of that musical notes. Each one of us plays certain part with an instrument. Symphony requires minimum 36 pieces. Okay? And you can be a symphony to yourself because you have more than 36 parts of an organ in your body. So life, in this case, is a symphony by itself, but collectively, it's an enormous symphony. That collectively you practice to make this music, the symphony of hospitality. Okay? And now that should happen on every day in our life, right? Through time, you mature. Right? Maturity doesn't mean we're old. Maturity means we're wiser, we're softer. Okay? Perhaps we're more precise. Right? Rather than life just become a hamster wheel, or perhaps in the better yet, you call it merry-go-round. But at the end of the day, they're the same. They both are wheels. They just keep on going around, right? But it shouldn't. So in my way of designing, I enjoy hotel design for that reason. I enjoy hotel design because I can somehow create a platform for beautiful things that happen every day. Now, I believe that adds value to people's life. The thing you do, it adds value to one's life. If someone experiences something unexpected under your domain, they will remember this and they will practice it. You call it copy, that's okay. They may take that, they bring it home. They practice it. The first time, it may look awful. But through this process, they become better. And that's a good thing because they took interest of your doing. And that is called inspiration. So I've spent 34 years in hospitality industry. The more I spend in that industry, the more I love it because there's so much I don't know. And I feel so rewarding when somebody able to take their beautiful memory from 30 years ago and have a conversation with me about. So which that lead to a small little story I will share with you. There was a developer in Japan named Mori Sacho, Mori Buildings. So Mr. Mori passed away 5 years ago, but 2 years prior to his passing, he said to me, he said, Tony, what are we designing today? That was a building he looked at. He said, what are we designing today? I said, let's design memories. One word, not complicated. Let us design memory. He said, define it. I said, you know, in Japan, you have this amazing washi paper, which is handcrafted paper. Beautiful, the color, the textures, and the tactile feel. I took the paper, he looked at it, he said, this is a beautiful piece of paper. good washi. I said, yes, indeed it is. It took 4 weeks of making. And paper contained great memory in it. Then I folded and I altered the memory of that paper. I say, same thing for you. You're making a great building. It contains great memory. But the day we give it to the general manager opened that door, new memories to be made. So the building is no different than the paper. So I created a hotel, Andaz Tokyo. I don't know if you guys ever been there. People look at it and say, Tony, it's only one color. White. There's only one material. Paper. I said, there you go. It is not about me. It is about our collective voice. And that voice, through that white sheet of paper, it becomes a mighty shout. So whenever I go back to Tokyo, talk to the Hyatt with Andaz, and I oftentimes say, do remember this voice. It's quiet, it's there. It was about memory. The sculpture, the curvy sculpture on the ceiling is a bend wood. To bend the wood must have a memory. Otherwise, you can't bend the wood. And people go there, they spend their time, whether they come back or not. But the time shared there is a memory. Right? So to me, this is basically how normally I do things. Then, of course, the place we create. Nature creates hospitality. Man-made architecture creates hospitality. Human create hospitality. You combine that together. This is around us every day. You look out, it's there. It's everywhere. So how do we make that visible to our guests? How do we inspire them? So this is basically what I do. So what I do, you may call it interior design. I'm not so sure because I study interior design through this school called Fashion Institute, just to get to know what interior design is about. From what I learned from there, somehow I learned through cosmetic things. They teach you about how to do makeup. But interior design is not a makeup. Architecture is not a packaging design, right? So if you look at it from that perspective, that you guys are actually the master of design. Because you're taking this hospitality into art form, right? With your gestures, with your voice, right? And making our building, making our space beautiful. Without your voice, we're nothing. We're just concrete, we're just steel. That's there. Without people, you have nothing. Right? So when we speak of how do we bring people together to practice hospitality, this is how we actually do it. The gentle breeze that gives hospitality. So in many cases, that which you have those opportunities, you may have to say, well, what kind of tree should I plant? So maybe you should say, the noisy one. Okay. I can debate this, and I remember all my project takes a great deal of debate. And then this one was actually with a British architect named Sir Norman Foster. So Norman wants to have these architectural trees, very tall. It's so big, I need a ladder to feel it. So I said, would it be okay if I just plant grass? And we argued it for 8 months. It's the most expensive argument of any project. None of us can come to agreement. The owner was an arbitrator. And watching this thing go, I fly to London, I debate. He come to New York, we debate. 8 months later, we still can come to agreement. So at the end, we still haven't, this is 5 years later, we still haven't come to that agreement. So what's in front of the hotel right now is completely empty. Yeah, we have to come to a closure very soon. But I wanted the grass mainly for one reason only. The place is hot, it's tropical. I want the guests to see the wind. Do you guys remember people used to put this little toilet paper in front of the air conditioner so you can see it coming? It's not a complicated thing. I want to plant grass because I want to see this movement. When you see it, you feel cooler. That's all there is to it, right? I'm not going to put up a building or put up these big trees to say, I am majestic. I'm not saying that's not important, but fundamentally, it is about the people. I'm listening to the people. People are telling me, oh, it's so hot. It's monsoon. How beautiful is it to see the wind? How beautiful is it to hear them? So sometimes you say in the hotel environment, let us entertain you. That's what it is all about. Right? Sometimes you don't need to put up a band to entertain someone. You just have to create the possibility. Right? So many things can come out of it. So each day when we get up in the morning, going to work, you ask why? What am I doing today? But very often, very, very often, I find that people come to work, they do the same thing as they were doing yesterday. So therefore, making this hotel design, if I want to turn it into a business, it will make this hotel design actually quite boring because I can just copy and paste. I'll take the same thing, same counter, just different color. But we know, Tay's right, the counter, the reception counter may not exist anymore. Right? We may break down the barrier between people to people, if we have people. Right? So every project that I involve with, we always ask, what is it we don't have? How do we preserve it? What is fading away? How do we preserve it? So hospitality to us, I think it's fading. It's fading rather fast. It is fading in a way that most of us don't even know we're losing it. So you have great many hotels these days with the lobby. People sit there with the earphone, free Wi-Fi. They not really interact. So it can be a sheer economy base. But they are there, but they're not there. So I find it a bit bizarre. How do we overcome that? So from design side of it, for me particularly, it's quite a bit of a challenge. How do we design for the people? How do I design for you? So very often, and you probably will like this, and make sure you remember to tell the owners. I always tell the owners that we spend money for our people. Our people is you. You are there 10 hours a day. Listen, operations is more than 10 hours a day, okay? So you are there. It's your primary home. Why would I want to compromise that? Money should be spent at the place where you work and bring the best out of you. Your best will then create the best experience for others. It is that simple. So my job is to create that. I didn't design my space for the customer, the guest. I design my space for the people to practice hospitality. So often, I even create silence. Sometimes you don't have to work that hard. Just let it be. Let the space be. The space will do its job. This is called turn down service. Does anybody know what turn down service is? Okay. I remember one of your hotels, one of the hotels. I came back late. I went to bed. I woke up in the morning, got 2 chocolate on my cheeks. Melted. Do you remember those days? Anyhow, I took Andaz Tokyo. I decided, I said, well, maybe turn down service should go into the public domain. What if I turn down the lobby as well? This is what the lobby looked like at 2 in the morning. Do you not feel that you're coming home? Do you not feel there's certain value added? Do you not feel that somebody feel for you? That's hospitality. Right? Instead of walking to the hotel lobby, you see the guy there grinding the floor, polishing and vacuum. That's not a way to bring people home. So how do we do this? These are the thoughtful things that we're supposed to do. We are in the hospitality field. We need to be thoughtful about everything we do. Right? Then farewell, memorable hospitality. When you say goodbye, is it happy or is it a sad ending? Today it's very hard to say. Some people may say, well, I never come back. When they say they never come back, doesn't mean you did a bad job. It is what we have in the marketplace. There's so many places. So you can possibly go to every place. So the question really comes down to this. What do you prefer? I can't tell you people prefer my space, but at least I can create a space to build relationship with you. Does that matter to you? Where's our comfort zone? You know, I used to go to the same restaurant twice a week. Now we got so many restaurants open in New York. Most of the people go to that one restaurant when they first open, and that's it. They never go back. Not because the food's not good, because there's so many others to try. Is that a good thing? I'm not so sure. But I can force people must stay in my place. But rather, you create the possibility for them to build relationship. How do you do that? You guys know the answer to that. It is all come down to that relationship building. And that is called comfort zone. You know, I can argue with the hotel operator. I can argue with the owner, say, presidential suite must be 4,000 square feet. It got to be 8 bays or 5 bays. That's all full of baloney. You think about how many square meters you can make love to every night. Right? So your room, it is that intimate with you every night. Why would I want to hug 5 bays or 8 bays? Right? So I can easily come down to say, yeah, maybe 125 square meter will do the job. Maybe 150 square meter will do the job. And I'll do that well. It's called quality versus quantity. Right? So what matters, what doesn't. Right? So, farewell, memorable. To make it memorable means I'll so long, I'll see you again. I'll see you soon. I'll see you. But truly that needs to happen when somebody do come back. Do you remember? You know, for a great many years, I worked in Bangkok. You know, I have my best friend in Bangkok. So I spent a lot of years in Bangkok. But I very seldom stay in this hotel called the Oriental in those days. And remember Kurt? So Kurt ran the hotel for 35 years. I probably only stayed there once or twice. He counted the rooms, so I stayed there once or twice. And they have a little restaurant called China House, tiny little Chinese restaurant. And the doorman was there to this day, probably. So one day, this is many years back, and I haven't stayed in the hotel for years. And I went to the restaurant, had dinner. I came out, the doorman said, "Oh, Mr. Chi, long time no see. What can I do for you?" A doorman. I mean, it says a lot. Let me get you a car. Where are you going? He did not give me a guilt trip. Said, "Why are you not staying with us?" Right? Hospitality provides shelter from the storm, even when we're a bad time. I remember I was traveling from Egypt. Something happened in Egypt, so I evacuated and traveled with the boxes. And I had a meeting in Paris with the IHG people. And they have a hotel, I think it's the Westin, I think it's on the corner of, in front of the park. I went in, 10 o'clock in the morning, it was night flight. I got there 10 in the morning, I walked on, I got to the front counter, and I said, check in, they said name. I give them the name, and the receptionist, good-looking Frenchman, looking at the screen, didn't look at me, and he did. I mean, that he did it for at least 5 minutes. I mean, is that a good hospitality? I mean, apparently something happened. He said, well, what are you trying to say? You should be here yesterday. You didn't show up. I mean, I didn't make the reservation. I mean, your company did. So, long story short of it, I said, may I borrow your phone? And he said, of course. Just push the phone to me on the counter. Speakerphone, I dial a number. And my friend, Michelle Jocelyn, at the Park Hyatt, answered the call. I said, Michelle, this is Tony. He said, oh, Tony, where are you? I said, I'm down the block. Can you give me a room? He says, he didn't say yes, he didn't say no. He just said, oh, come for breakfast. So I walk to the hotel, Park Hyatt in Paris. He's in the lobby, he says, I don't have a room. Meanwhile, I really got kicked out from the other one. Right? So I'm under the storm. So he went out of his way. He said, you know, do you remember the mock-up room we got? I said, yeah. He said, never got it fixed. I said, oh, I'll take it. He said, are you sure? I said, yeah. So he came out with a room. It was a mock-up room, okay? Hasn't never been repaired. I said, I'll stay in the mock-up room. But what I did know, it didn't have a bathroom. But I was very happy because I desperately needed the room. Right? So this fundamentally is the hospitality. So I think everything I'm saying here, there is no formula to tell you what's going to work, what's not going to work. But fundamentally, it is about one thing, connecting the dots. So the voice of the hospitality does amazing connection. You can connect through space. Once made that connection, all the dots are connected. Now you can hear it and you can see it. And most of all, you can feel it. And that's the art form of hospitality. So that has been the blueprint for all my design over the last 34 years in the hospitality industry. So thank you very much for listening.